Do you let fear hold you back from achieving your dreams? Hi, I'm Corinne Christensen and welcome to my YouTube channel. A lot of times we let failure stop us and keep us small because we're afraid of so many different things. And I think a lot of times the fear actually that we feel really isn't actually about fear at all. It's really about what the fear represents to us. A lot of times we feel rejection could take over. We worry, like if I step out and do something totally different, we're so fixed on, whether we'll be judged or ridiculed by others. And a lot of times that's a story that we create in our own head. Like most people that, really care about you, they want you to succeed. And I think that's a lot of times something that totally slips our mind because we're so super focused on, fear of being judged, right? And a lot of times I think too that we're worried about the loss of our self-worth. We kind of value success, in equation to our values that we hold. And we think that if something goes wrong, that maybe we'll lose a sense of value, either as ourselves or how others view us. And another thing is, disappointment. We just dread, letting ourselves down or letting other people down. And or it's really based on uncertainty. Like the minute that uncertainty comes in, it's like, we're so scared of the unknown. And really, we are so good at talking ourselves out of anything, especially something new that could have like a potential challenge. And it's like, no, we're just going to stay safe and stay small, right? And it's really funny how our mind is amazing how it can either talk us into something or talk us right out of something. And it's actually quite entertaining sometimes, right? And I think though, like a lot of times when we don't take any chances, there's really a high cost of fear because you miss out on so much opportunities in your life because right away your subconscious just wants to keep you small, keep you safe, right? That's the main job, is just super safety. So it can kind of bring up all these past failures and stuff and very quite easily talk you out of anything new, right? So it's quite interesting. And then, a lot of times that leads us to underachieve because, it stifles our creativity and your willingness to take any risks. Like, it's like, oh, I'm not going to put myself out there. No. I'm just going to stay home, stay small, stay safe, do what I always do, right? And there's just no growth in that, right? And a lot of times too, later in life, we might experience a lot of regret. Later in life, say 20 years down the road, and it's like maybe your physical health and a few things have declined. And, you're just looking back on your life and you're like, oh, why didn't I do that? Like, who cares what, we're so hyper-focused on what other people think. And 9 times out of 10, they think nothing because your friends would always support you. Or, another analogy I heard that I thought was just so mind-blowing was like, even if someone judges you and dislikes you, which there's always going to be those people and that's fine. They're not ringing your doorbell tomorrow and going, oh, here's $6,000, pay your mortgage and your bills. You know what I mean? Like, it's so funny. It's like, who cares? Who cares? At the end of the day, who cares, right? You have to be, you have to have value enough in your own self that that what you're doing is worth it and it makes you happy, right? And otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. And I mean, otherwise we really stay stagnant, right? And there's no growth in that. And I can kind of bring up an example of my own self. I think I've said this many times, but I'm still learning, and I admit that. But I remember making my first couple YouTube videos, and I mean, I was absolutely petrified. I'm sure every part of me was shaking, and it was like, in my mind, the phone or your camera, whatever, was like 1 million people watching you, and it was like, oh, sweat beads rolling, and just all these things that you create in your head, right? And there's so many different things that like everything gets better with repetition and just constant making more videos and getting more comfortable. And instead of, I was like wrapped up in fear at that moment too, I wasn't thinking like, hey, the camera is your friend. People want to see you. You're building a community. You're getting better. Like we right away just automatically go to that negative, right? And I think it's just habit. We have to just kind of turn that around, right? And I think as well, we have to reframe failure. Like, I mean, we could view failure as a learning opportunity and not just a failure, right? Every setback provides valuable insights that can propel you forward towards future success, right? And I mean, even Thomas Edison, he says, I haven't failed. He says, I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work. And that, that's exactly it, right? And I think part of it is like setting realistic goals. If you have this big long goal that's like 5-year process, whatever, right? If we could break it down into smaller steps, more achievable goals that are like really less intimidating, and decide that, okay, once a week I'm gonna, donate an hour of my time to improving whatever skills kind of thing, right? And just smaller blocks that are easier because, every single step, right? It propels you forward. And if we just focused on effort and not the outcome, like even, small YouTube channel like me where, right away you're like, oh, I'd love to be monetized. I'd love to have 1,000 subscribers, all the end things, right? But at the same token, if you just realize, like, I love the creative process. And if you didn't know this about me, I am a super nerd, big time super nerd. I love taking courses. I love reading books. I love like learning new things. And the whole creation process of coming up with an idea, researching that idea, putting it into words, making a script, making a thumbnail, all that stuff. Like, I love all that stuff, right? So it's like, why am I hyper-focused on the outcome? How about being hyper-focused on, I love the creation process and I'm going to keep doing it, and I'm hoping to just keep getting better and, have some relatable people that can relate to me, right? And hopefully provide something of value to the viewer, right? Which is, like I said, if we just put fear aside and just go for it, right? Like, we only have one life. And I think too, like, just practice self-compassion. Treat yourself with kindness. Treat yourself like you treat your best friend, right? And, if we just realize sometimes things don't work out 100% perfect, and that's okay because nothing in life is perfect, right? And just acknowledge any kind of feelings you have without judgment. And remember that everyone makes mistakes. That's part of growing, and it's perfectly fine, right? And also challenging negative thoughts when they come up. I don't care who you are. You can be the most positive person in the world. And sometimes we all kind of have the negative thoughts. And you have to think to yourself, like, are these questions in my mind, are they valid? Or is this a story that I've made up in my mind? Because we're so good at that, right? And also embracing our imperfections. Like, yes, we strive for excellence, but it doesn't always happen, right? And just any little step towards growth, celebrate it, right? And I just think, like, now is the time. Now is the time to confront your fears and unlock your full potential. And take a moment to just reflect on these questions. Number 1, what are you most afraid of failing at? And like I said, 9 times out of 10, it's a story that we've made up. It doesn't even exist, Instead of, us thinking right away, like, what if the worst thing happens? What if the best thing happened? What if you put your energy into what if the best thing happened and every single dream of mine worked out? Then what, right? And what steps can you take, no matter how small, to move you closer to that goal? And number 3, how can you reframe failure as a learning opportunity? Instead of embracing like the whole failure process, what was positive out of that failure? What did you learn that you would not repeat next time? So to me, that's still a bonus, right? And if you could choose one small action that you could take today to overcome your fear of failure, it could be anything from researching a new skill, reaching out to a mentor for advice. And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one single step. Take that step today and embrace the possibilities that lie ahead. And if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe.